everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm here with you briefly today. I'm Richard Carlton. I am the creator of FMTrain.tv. We've wrapped up our Nick conversation for the week. Today is a extra special conversation that we'll be having, talking about a product in market that's shipping that is actually available right now. And that is talking about the concept of managing or deploying solutions easily, especially to multiple servers. So we'll be talking about that in a little bit. Let's cover some upcoming broadcast excitement. If I press the button right here on my little control panel, you're going to see the upcoming broadcast schedule. If you go to fmtrain.tv, you can do this too. You can use a web browser. It's very cool. You can see, hit the live button here. It'll show you the upcoming broadcast. Today, Kristian, Jacob, Taylor talking about 360Works Deploy. Monday, John Hogle will be here doing a deep dive on valueless. It was people were having questions about valueless. Really, and Nick, whenever Nick does anything, it's like, at the he's down in the weeds, going deep. And sometimes we need another person to present kind of the same idea, same materials in a different way. I do that a lot. John Hogle's going to take a swing at valueless on Monday. Then Nick will be back with robot shenanigans on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. All right. So Jacob Taylor and Kristian Schmidt. So do I want to? So let me. You want me to?
You keep calling me Kristian Schmidt. That's giving me a little too much credit.
Kristian Schmidt. I'm sorry, we have too many Kristians here. Yeah, that's totally different. Kristian, Kristian Schmidt. Yes, sorry, that's monkey bread. I feel stupid. Jacob Taylor and Kristian Olsen, different Kristian, spelled differently. So you want me to tee this up briefly for everyone? So we've talked about this before, probably a couple of years ago. Here is your scenario. So whenever we're going to show something, I always like to tee up why the hell we might want what we want. So some of you are building vertical market applications. This is especially applicable to you. Kristian has a slightly different use case here. He'll talk about that shortly. Let's talk about this scenario. So Scott Kane has a vertical market solution that he is either selling or will sell at some point. So let's say that Scott, right? So this is Scott. This is Scott right here. This is Scott. Scott is going to sell the software to other people. And so this is one of the other people that he's going to sell to, right? And the rub is that he works on the solution offline, makes edits, and then he needs an easy way of taking his edits to the version of his software. So maybe the customer has 1.0 and Scott builds 1.1. And so the old school way of doing the data upgrade is to basically write a bunch of scripts or do a bunch of imports from table to table to table. Now, Claris with the release of FileMaker 17 came out with the data migration tool, the DMT. And that is a tool that will take the data out of one file and horizontally move it at extraordinarily high speed to a new version of the same file. So if you have a new version of a file and that file is largely the same, where you've made, maybe you added a field, maybe you add a table, maybe you add a layout, maybe you edit some tables, things like that, edit some fields. But largely it's like if we went from starting point to a slightly newer version of starting point, right? It's not like a totally radically different solution. The data migration tool from Claris will move the data at high speed. We've got this in our training, which reminds me that if you have not supported the channel by buying our complete training, this is where you would learn how to use those tools, right? The data migration tool. We have about an hour and a half of training on that tool specifically. It's in one of these two bundles. That's how you support this channel, right? So data migration tool is out there, and you have to do this kind of command line thing, and there's some ways around it. Essentially, you're going to identify the old file, you're going to identify the new file, you're going to say go, and there's almost no interface to it. It's kind of ugly. It's this command line thing, and it'll use all the processors you have on the computer, which is unlike normally how FileMaker Pro works. FileMaker Pro normally gives you one processor, maybe sometimes two under unique conditions. So if you buy a computer with 20 processors and a billion, trillion, zillion terabytes of RAM, it don't matter because it'll only use one processor because it's single threaded. Well, this process uses all the processors and moves the data. Instead of hours or days of importing, it does it literally in seconds, like 60, 80, 90 seconds, sometimes faster than that. So, and it's smart because as you define new fields, it knows what those new fields are. If you rename a field, generally, it still moves the data for you as well. So this tool is great, but it's like on a solution by solution basis or a file by file basis. And so what would be great what would be great is if you worked on the file locally. You're Scott Kane, and the customer is over here, way on the other side of the country somewhere, right? And you press a button somehow, and your solution magically beams itself up to that customer server, and it updates and takes all that customer's data and moves it into your new version auto-magically. You didn't have to do besides press the button. Maybe Scott sells 100 or 20, has 20 customers or 100 customers, and you do this one update, and then instead of using a data migration tool on every on every solution, you press the button once, and it goes to all 20 or 100 of your customers to each of their servers and moves the data over and imports it. That's what the 360Works data well, it's called deploy, but at the core of the deploy is they took this data migration tool and they made this wrapper around it that allows it to upload files and do all this automagical stuff. And that's what we're demoing today. That's the use case. This is bad stuff. It's like MirrorSync. Jesse Barnum at 360Works is, I consider, and frankly, Kristian Schmidt too, when I bring third-party people on the show, they do essential stuff, like super essential stuff. Like the platform could not really be awesome without the help of some of these individuals, right? Between Kristian Schmidt and Jesse Barnum and Nick Orr at Goya, it's the base elements people. Those companies kick serious. They support the products. They're really great. And so I own all three products from all three companies. My engineers, if I ever get behind, hey, boss, when are we getting the update for the monkey bread, blah, 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 because we use it every day. Kristian sends me his emails. Where's my updated version? Yes, I'll go take the credit card and buy it, right? And so all true, right, Kristian? Just bob your head up and down. You're agreeing, yes, okay. So I am... Yes, give me my right? And I have to take out the credit card and buy it for you. That's because it's that good. So I've teed up the use case, one of the use cases for this. Kristian's got another use case for this, but I want to kind of start with the why should I give a about this conversation today? Why should I care? And this is why. You want to deploy it. You want to sell your solution. You don't want to be up all night supporting your customers. You want to do it, the fix once, press a button, and it rolls out to all your customers in parallel, okay? So
I'm going to give just a couple little spiels, and then Jacob's actually going to be our first person talking about the preliminary things that need to be set up. But the couple little things I was going to say, you actually hit the main point there, Richard. Thank you. Which is, yes, I have a weird use case that this came about with, but as soon as I saw how cool this tool was, I went to two of my clients who want to have vertical market solutions and let them know this problem that we've been talking about for several years is solved with this tool, and they got really excited. So the customer that I ended up using this for, it was a weird situation, but you hit a really good point there, Richard, which is if it wasn't for this tool, I don't know how the project would have proceeded, because we were in a unique situation where I can't work on their file. They're in a very remote area with poor internet, and they could not connect to our servers here in the United States because of their poor internet. And so we got to an impasse of how do we continue development on this solution and make it so both of us can use it. And this tool really solved that problem. So I'm going to show you how to set it up. But first, there are a couple things you need to do on the back end. So I want to turn the floor over to Jacob and give him an opportunity to tell us what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can put the 360 deploy. There's a server-side component. It's what does the work here. I guess I should step exactly one step back. There are two components. Kristian is going to demo the second component. That's the app that does the work. It's where your licensing goes. It's he's going to walk through it. It's where you set up, oh, we have a development server. Oh, we have a production server. We're going to, push and schedule and do all that kind of stuff. So that's like the fun part of this, actually. But there's a technical requirement. So any of these servers that you are pushing this file to, and kind of to dive a little bit further into it, what it does is you have your development copy wherever that lives. It can be local, like Richard said. You can use a hosted file too. It takes a clone of it and it pushes it over to, we'll say, the production server. If there's only one, then that's simple. If you have 100 of them, well, it's going to push 100 times. And so on each of those production servers, it's going to take that clone of your development copy and the production data and combine the two. Yes, as Richard said, using the FileMaker data migration tool. It's completely automatic. If it fails or whatever for any reason, it like rolls it back. So you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's a big one. It rolls
Yeah.
back. So if it fails, it doesn't just like I can imagine it failing for some reason, and then it just abandons the customer and says, if you have any problems with this, we're sorry, you're screwed. Please call Scott Kane and complain to him and demand a refund.
Yep.
I mean, who wants that, right?
Yep.
So yeah.
And I believe we're going to do a test deployment later, so we'll be able to demo the other part of that. Assuming it's successful, it emails you, and I think even if it fails, it emails you as well. But it emails you a whole log that's like brain dump everything that happened, every field that got matched, every whatever through all your tables in the entire file, so that if you want to do, for example, a manual review afterwards, just to double, triple, quadruple check that everything went perfectly, you can do that. It's emailed to you. I think 360Works is who kind of runs the back end on that. But yeah, the destination email address for that is set up in the app that Kristian will demo here shortly. But I mentioned there's a server-side component. It's what does that work and then does the report back that happens here. That is, and let me share my screen here really quick. So this is 360Works website. When you go, so you'll have to get a license for this, for the 360 deploy product, or if you're like RCC and you already have the, I don't know what it's called, the site license or the
right there,
give us all.
Right. It's right below. It's the portfolio bundle right there.
The portfolio bundle license. So if you have like everything 360 already has, you're covered. This is available to you already. So this download is pretty quick. It's a few hundred megabytes. I grabbed it previously because I had to set it up on the server. One thing, and it gives you a zip file, and you end up with a folder with this in it. And so there's a Mac installer here, and there's a Windows installer. They do not yet support the Linux FileMaker server builds. That is coming, I'm told. I can't speak for 360Works and give a timeline on that, and also they didn't give me one, so I don't have it. But it's a forthcoming conversation at some point in the future that will be supported. So it may be a little more manual than this, but on Mac or Windows, you're just going to double click the installer. The only thing that you need to know probably in advance for this is I believe it requires Java. So if you want to have Java installed on the system in advance, essentially, the actual software, like it runs inside a Tomcat, brings its own like 360Works stuff, even their email plugin and all that. It brings its own Java in when it needs it. But I think the installer is predicated on Java as well. And so if you don't have it, it just says, hey, you need to install Java, thanks. So that's the only thing to know. There's no configuration. So assuming you have Java on the server and it's a Mac or Windows, you double click. That's it. So you don't configure anything. There's no licensing, et cetera, et cetera. Kristian's going to demo that in a moment. Your license for this product goes in the 360 deploy app, which is actually like this thing right here. So he's going to have his copy that's all configured up with the production or the development, the production server, and then separately also the licensing. So Kristian,
I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So a couple things there. When I first had to explore this, Jacob was actually the one who suggested to me that I use this product. And one of the things that he kind of sold me on is it's going to be super easy to set up. And though I believe Jacob, what's super easy for Jacob isn't necessarily super easy for everyone else, even myself included. And so I kind of took that with a grain of salt. And I'm not using the pre-setup copy, actually. I'm going to hide the codes from you guys because I can't share our licensing or our dev server passwords, but I want you to see just how easy this is. So I've downloaded the 360 deploy product from their website. You can go actually download the demo if you want to. I'm not going to make it that easy for 360 since we're basically selling the product today. But once you get it, you're going to open up an app and get this. And you basically work from top to bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and click on settings. And it's going to want a couple things, like what's the name of this configuration? My license for 360's deploy, who it's registered to. And then Jacob mentioned that you get an email when the process starts and ends, whether it's successful or not. This is the email that it goes to. So I'm going to go ahead and fill out some of this, and then I'm going to hide it off screen so you don't get our product key, because that could be an issue. I'm also going to try very carefully not to spell my email wrong on live television. RC Consulting. Okay, that looks good. We're going to call this Stream Demo, and I'm going to hide this for just a moment. Give me 2 seconds. And to go back to one of the things that Jacob said, when I was telling one of my clients about this, and we were looking at the licensing, and my goal here today isn't to sell this product, but it kind of does sell itself. One of my clients is interested in MirrorSync, and they want to do a vertical market solution. And there might be, I can't recall if we're actually using any other 360 deployed products at the moment. But what's really cool is for the type of license they get, they basically get both the products at the same cost. To me, that is such a win. So if you're looking at that and you have a vertical market solution, you end up just getting every 360 product for one cost. So kudos to 360 on that for not just milking people on it. So what I've done now is I've clicked on the dev server, and I'm going to click configure dev location. And it's going to want to know the username to our server. It's going to want to know the password, and it's going to want to know the host name. I can't share this all with you, so I'm going to hide this again. But that's what I'm filling out right now.
And if you spotted that checkbox that was at the very top of what he was filling out, as I mentioned, if your dev file is local, I'm always going to encourage you to have a hosted file, because then you get wonderful and glorious backups. But if you happen to be developing it locally, you can set that up too. So.
And there's also, oops, wrong thing, a spot for SSL that I kind of just glossed over. All right, so all I did after filling those out is I hit the next button, and here's a list of our files on our server. I'm going to try not to show up a bunch of customer stuff, but I'm going to click on this FMSP Lite demo. I'm going to say next, and then I need the account name and password for it. This I can share because it's pretty basic, and you can't actually see the password, which isn't all that secure anyways. We're going to hit next. Some databases are encrypted. This one is not, so yours should be. So we're done with that part. Now we're going to go ahead and do the production server. Same thing. I'm going to click on add production server, and I need to put in that information. There's the checkbox for, you can actually be on the same server. So there's an option for that to save you some time, as well as the SSL. So I'm going to move this off screen again for just a moment. And my goal here isn't to bore you with me, copying and pasting things, but I really do want you to see how easy this is, because it is one of the things that absolutely blew me away. My customer had a unique situation that did make this more difficult, but most people should not run into that. So here we are now. So I've got the dev file, and it's like, hey, which file do you want from the production file? Now, this part's really cool. I didn't choose this. It saw the same file with the same name, and it selected it for me, because it's like, hey, you probably want that file. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And I'm going to hit FileMaker account same as dev. I'm going to hit next. Next. Basically, it's just asking me if all of the logins or credentials are the same on each file. Otherwise, you can give different ones. The way that I've had mine set up is they have the same information. They're kind of mirrors of each other. So now we're done. I'm going to move this file out of the way for just a moment. And we're going to do some fake development here real quick. So I'm going to pull up a copy of Starting Point Lite. So I'm going to go into Manage Database, and I'm going to go ahead and make a new table. So we're going to call this new table. And I'm kind of just making this up as we go, but new table, look at that. It's already got, oops. I'm still in the, did I actually make it? Oh, I think I made a field. I wasn't paying attention there. Let's try that one more time. New table. We're going to go ahead and hit create. Now we're going to go to fields. So we've got all my default fields, but let's go ahead and add something in here. We'll call it field 1, field 2, FMSP Lite. And well, let's just for fun, make a calc. I can kind of see that on screen. And we're going to create that. And this is going to be a case. That doesn't really matter. If 1 equals 1 cow, else snake. There we go. That seems reasonable enough. Oh, I lost my mouse. There we go. And then we're going to go to the relationship graph just to see that it's on there. I'm not necessarily going to make any relationships right now, but I am going to go okay. Oops. There we go. Little rainbow wheel. Beautiful. I'm going to go into layout. And we've got our new layout down here. Let's go ahead and open it. And let's just throw some stuff on screen. I'm always tickled by how well everything fits on my screen on these streams. I'm trying to make this thing small so I can actually see it. And I don't need to add a lot. I think the idea is just to demonstrate the basic idea of how this works. So we've got some fields on there. Let's go ahead and just add a button. There we go. We'll add another button just for fun and give it a different style. There we go. And that's probably, we'll add a box. Because I did boxes in a previous stream, so why not? There we go. So we got a layout with some stuff on it. And then let's go into the script workspace. Sorry, buddy, about the dark mode. I was going to turn it off, but the point of this one is not to show off, what do you call it, scripts. So I'm going to just add a new script here. We're going to call this new script. Comment. This is for demo. We can do a set field. We got that new table. We'll set field 1 to 1. I'd like to say that I just spell words wrong when I'm live and nervous, but unfortunately, that's my kryptonite. We're going to do a loop with a counter. Beautiful. Again, we're not actually going to run these scripts. There we go. One script is actually probably sufficient too. Let's see if I can just drag this all the way to the top. We'll call it 360 deploy demo. Beautiful. And even just to go a step further, let's do this. Let's go up to here, manage custom functions. Let's make a custom function for fun. So we will call this deploy fun. And it will equal snake. Because snakes and cows are my theme today. We're going to say okay. And then, we'll even come over here, make another one of those for FMSP Lite and do our custom function. What did I call that? Demo fun or something like that? Deploy fun. There we go. All right, so looking at my checklist here, we've got a table, we've got fields, we've got custom functions, we've got a script, we've got a layout. I think that's pretty sufficient. Point here isn't to show you guys how to develop, it's to show you how this tool works. So we're going to say save all. I am going to go ahead and close this file because you can't have the files open for this. So I'm going to close that down. We're going to grab 360 deploy over. I'm going to cross my fingers that everything goes smoothly during the stream. I tested this earlier. Okay. And I'm also going to open my email. Yeah, I tested it this morning, but it's always fun when you're live. So let's go ahead and hit the deploy button. The deploy, you can't have any other files open, by the way. So I have a second copy of FileMaker open for this. And you can schedule these. That's something I tend to overlook myself. But you can create these scheduled bases or on demand, say, I want to do this right now. So we're going to go ahead and say, do it now. And it's creating clones and doing stuff. While that happens, I actually just got an email from 360 letting me know that this is happening. And it's going to run, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Jacob. I know Richard kind of gave us a little bit of an explanation, but Jacob, you want to give us a deeper dive into what is happening right now?
Sure. So you can see some of the things that it's listing out, which are like, what is the tool doing? As I mentioned, it takes your development copy and it clones it, right? No records, none of that stuff. If your databases are encrypted, it will respect that and bring it over in encrypted format also. It posts it to the production server and then takes the production file offline. That's probably the big kind of asterisk for this tool. It can't be done. I mean, it's live because it's fast enough, but can't be done live. The file has to be closed. It'll do that for you. So it takes the production file down, it pulls all the, and then on the server side, so nothing runs on your local machine necessarily. It combines that clone that you just had of your development file with the data inside the production file. That uses the FileMaker data migration tool. There is, and I think we covered this on one stream at some point, but there's a whole kind of set of logic branches for how it actually does the data matching. Richard kind of alluded to it, kind of generally being pretty smart about it. Obviously, if it can exactly match everything in both files, with the exception of Kristian added a new table here. So obviously it's not going to recognize that. But that's only because there isn't any production data associated with it. So it's just going to be a blank table, but it'll be brought over. And so if for the fields that already exist, it can just lock onto it really easily. Tables there, field IDs there. There's internal IDs that it can use to track all of this stuff. If it's super easy for it to just bring everything over because you just added a new module, right? Or something like Kristian did here. There's a couple new scripts, a new module, whatever, a little extra functionality, but you're not, even necessarily changing the thing that exists. It just rips it right over. There's a little more logic and a little more nuance involved for cases where, for example, you've changed an existing field. If it's the same field and you just renamed it, those IDs don't change, so that's an immediate lock. It has no problem with that at all. It does have to get smart sometimes when you completely rebuild certain things, because they'll have unrelated IDs, unrelated, all that stuff. It can do a pretty smart job of that, though. I think there's different things that it'll try to identify. Oh, this field goes with that data, and to match them up and to line everything up. At the end, it gets down to, is there a table name I recognize, and then also is there a field name that's the same? And so even in a case where you've rebuilt a module or something like that from scratch, for example, it's quite possible for it to bring the data over. It's more work on its part, and so just in a general sense, there's a little more risk involved with that, but it's still pretty smart. It'll usually do a good job, and if you're in that situation, that's what the log is for. You need to be reviewing that after the fact, especially if you're not doing kind of a simple demo, but something like Kristian did where it's just wholly adding a new module. There's nothing to bring over per se. You're not doing much more than maybe renaming a couple of fields to fit with your naming scheme or something like that. Basic changes. So I think it's worth also noting, so that part of the process is fairly straightforward. From your perspective, the recommendation that I give to other engineers, and I gave this to Kristian as well, when I kind of set them up with 360 Deploy, is you want to think about, there's a couple things to note. One is, so if you've been doing old school development, there's a few different ways to do that. You can do it on the live file, obviously. But if you have a development environment and you're moving to this situation, previously you might, build everything up in the dev file and then have to either copy and paste everything over, do a series of imports like Richard noted, kind of big work stuff. Because this is so slick and easy, the recommendation actually is that you deploy more often rather than less if you can. And so you want to do it as often as possible. That doesn't necessarily mean every day or something like that. It may mean per contiguous feature, you add a module. It's been tested in the dev version. You think it works. Bring them, do it. Bring the module over, but don't go months between this and expect it to just be flawless, because there's always little changes that people aren't thinking about that they mix. And so the greater the delta, the change between your development and your production copy, the more work it has to do. And again, if it can't just per serial on each field and per layout and all that stuff match everything up immediately, it increases the risk a little bit that it makes a mistake in picking stuff. That's not necessarily bad. Yeah.
In short, are you kind of saying the longer you wait to do it, not only might it take longer, but you're making it more dicey?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And it'll be very smart. I actually haven't seen it fail, so it's just fair warning. It's a very smart tool, to be perfectly honest, but no tool is fallible. And there are also, I'll say on the positive side, there are benefits to doing it more often, which are your customers get features, bug fixes, updates more often. That will make them happy. They will love that. And you can use the scheduling feature that we didn't use it today, but you can use the scheduling feature to run it, after hours basically, so that it's in the middle of the night or whatever the equivalent of that is for your clients. So they can come in, Tuesday morning and they got a new module added, or they got a new calculator or whatever it is that you added right on Monday. So.
And a couple things I just want to re-highlight, I think that Jacob said there before showing you guys a couple things is, I forgot to show you changes. The only thing I did was add, but I want to be really clear that this is not just for adding to a database. So for like my client, I used this last week for them, and I needed to actually go into some tables and add some fields, change some fields, delete some things. And so it wrote to their file, it added the fields, the table, the TOs, and it actually deleted the excess stuff that I realized that I needed to get rid of as well. But as Jacob pointed out, the one thing it doesn't move is data. So you just have to keep that in mind, that like for my client, I do eventually want to see their data. So I'll have to add that kind of into my repertoire. The other thing is, David Angel had asked Jacob, we mentioned that the files themselves don't have to be hosted, though. Highly suggest they both are, at least the production
just
one.
For backup reasons, if nothing else.
Yeah, but David was asking, does the deploy file have to be hosted? And it doesn't. In fact, the one that I'm using right now and the one I use for my customer, they're on my computer. I don't host them at the moment, and I don't have a huge need to have to do that. Frankly, if this file completely exploded, you guys saw it took me just a few minutes to reconfigure it. So at the moment, I don't have a huge need to put it on the server, though the files are worth a lot of money. So those are on the server to protect them. You might have also saw how quickly that run. Now, we're running to West Coast servers, if I'm not mistaken here, and I did very minimal changes. So it might not be all that shocking that it ran that quickly. However, go ahead, was this one of them elsewhere?
Yeah, stream servers in Ohio, actually. Yeah.
Look at so West Coast to East Coast there, or mostly East Coast. So, but for my client, I've been shocked. They are off of the coast of Australia and Thailand or something down there, and they have bad internet. Again, that's the whole reason we're using this. And when I ran this the other day, I was shocked at how quickly it ran. It's really impressive. And as soon as this completed, almost immediately as Jacob started talking, I got that log from 360Works. So here is what Jacob was mentioning to you, and you can actually go in and see kind of everything that happened and then look for things like errors or mistakes. Thus far, I've not had any issues with this. So I basically get a log that says, hey, hunky-dory and fast. So just wanted to show that. And then looking at my checklist here, make sure I don't step on Jacob at all. Let me go ahead and show you guys the file. So I'm going to close the 360 deploy now. And I'm going to pull over our copy of starting point. So this is not the one I started with. This is a different one. I know that they technically look identical. And here is our new table. Now, maybe I could have created records in here to show you that the records did not come over, but there's our layout. And I've also got our script over here. And one of the reasons I put the custom function in the script, you can see, so it brought our script with our fields and our custom function. So this is really neat. Again, if you're doing a vertical market solution and you want to do versioning, how you would solve this problem before having a tool like this, to me, was a really daunting question. But you might have other situations too, where you would just prefer to work on a production one before pushing changes to the development server. I know many of my clients frequently ask me, hey, Kristian, we build something new. How do we build this into the live file without breaking everything? And I'm quite experienced and practiced with it, but I'll tell you, sometimes you're building like a significant new feature and module, and it's like, how do I keep people out of this? How do I make changes without turning it on? And this is a tool that can give you an option to do that. Though, like Jacob said, it is best to run this more frequently rather than less frequently, just to reduce the likelihood of issues and also improve the speed at which it's going to push that. And also, as he pointed out, it's a big one. If you're fixing bugs, obviously your clients are going to want to see that sooner than later. So that, I believe,
I really loved this thing as a. Sorry, I was going to say, I really loved this thing as a solution for the internet problem too, because So it's because the data stays local, the data stays on the production server. This client actually has a really fast on-site server. It's just the internet that's bad. And so in that case, honestly, it was kind of a pain to get for even other reasons, honestly, but just to get the 360Works stuff downloaded, which, it's a couple hundred megabyte for the installer and all this stuff. But a clone of the database is 30 or 40 megabytes, something like that. And so to have it posted and after hours, because their internet gets slower, we'll say during the business day, essentially. And so you can post it after hours, which, because the time zone difference, works great for us, basically. It takes the file, it does the data migration for it, and it puts it back live again. Kristian gets an email at the start and when it's done, and that's it. He even doesn't, like he mentioned, it's the internet there is bad enough that we can't get into the actual live file to like validate the data or whatever. The customer, they know what their data looks like. Hasn't been an issue. So.
And I want to go back to kind of a couple of things you're saying there, Jacob, because I just saw that Stu posted a question, and if Stu has this question, I'm gonna guess that others too. So Stu, I'm just going to read his out loud real quick. But how does it handle data conflicts? Example: dev records added have the same serial number as production records. Does production data always win? Now I know we kind of covered this, Jacob, but do you want to kind of rehash on that again?
Yeah, absolutely. So the key. Oh, and that was the other part of the explanation I meant to say. So the key thing here is it's combining a clone with the production file. Clones have no records. So if you have a development file, obviously, and maybe it's fake data or something, but maybe you want data in it so that you can test it, right? You're building a time entry system or something like that. It's really helpful if you have a few time entries in there to test everything over, to test your reporting, make sure your week calculations are correct, like all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter at all because you're cloning that file. So no records are brought over. The only relevant records are the production ones. And so the different explanation that I gave before is like, a lot of it is thinking about, we're going to bring, we're bringing the data over. No, you're bringing the structure over. The data stays in one place. It's the same conversation. It's 180 degrees. So we take the structure from the development file and we put it on top of the data for the production file. The data migration tool, its job here is to take that data and make sure that everything matches up. And for things that need to be deleted, modified, etc., that's where the intelligence of that tool comes in. 360 Deploy is operating that under the hood.
This part confused me a little bit too when Jacob kept saying to me, "Oh, you need the data migration tool," and I'm like, "I don't need the data migration tool. I need to write structural changes to the file." And he's like, "No, but we're going to just throw their file away and replace it with the new file, and we'll use the data migration tool to put all the data in there." So this is important because, like Stu, for like my client, it's not a vertical market solution yet. They do intend, but that's probably years away. And so at one point, what I see on my screen is not going to match theirs data-wise. We'll have the same file. And so I have to solve that problem. For me, what I'm going to do with that specific client for that specific situation is at one point, I'm actually going to throw away the dev file and the production file, and I'm going to take a copy, or I have that backwards. I'm going to throw away my file in California, the dev file, and I'm going to take a copy of their production file and bring it over here. I just can't do that a lot because that's the part that's hard because of all the data. But no data is moved. So there's a pro and con to that. You guys have to keep that in mind. And Jacob, I don't know, maybe you just replied to that last question.
I'm gonna answer it as well. Yeah.
You go ahead.
So yeah. Willand, I believe, apologies if I get your name wrong there, from Twitch asked, does this tool work for Claris Cloud? And the answer is no. And the reason for that is because we cannot install software on the Claris Cloud servers. Just in the same way that we can't do plugins on them and stuff like that. There's a server-side component that I mentioned you have to install. There's actually two reasons technically. One of which is that those servers are Linux and 360 Deploy does not yet. yet support the Linux server. But even when the Linux server is supported, we do not have access to those production servers, and so we can't like get in on the command line and do that. So yeah, the short answer is no, and the longer answer is no, and here's multiple reasons. Unfortunately, you will need a Mac or Windows, currently, eventually Linux, FileMaker server proper, wherever that's deployed. If that's in your network on site, in Amazon, Azure, whatever, that part doesn't really matter so much. But you will need an actual full-fledged FileMaker server for this.
Jacob, it looks like David Angel had a question for you. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, did
I was going to do the same thing, so you beat me to the punch. So, Jacob.
Is there a Windows 2022 Nano server? No. I mean, maybe. I would not run a Windows server with that little RAM. Frankly, there's two parts to that. Windows Server 2022 is not officially supported by Claris yet. That doesn't mean it doesn't work, but it's not supported. So there's that part of the conversation. Second part is Nano, I think, is a gig of RAM, I think, on Amazon. And I would not do that under any circumstance. Currently, actually, no, not even currently. With 19.4, you can still get away with a medium, which has 4 gigs of RAM. 19.5, basically you can't anymore. It's so close. If you literally turn on even WebDirect, it ends up being almost too much. If you have any real usage on WebDirect or any of the other stuff, you run out pretty quick. So, yeah, I wouldn't use that little. That's also true of the Linux ones, although obviously Linux itself uses less RAM in the first place, and so you can get away with a little smaller. You probably still squeeze out a medium or something pretty easily, but the official certified minimum RAM requirement's 8 gigs, and unless it's a single person machine or something like that, essentially, I wouldn't go under that. We're in the process of bumping people up to larges by default. Even for the people that are like, we want the cheapest possible whatever, that's becoming a large as of basically once we certify 19.5. So there's a bunch of benefits to the additional RAM, and the list of drawbacks to trying to squeeze out something as small as a medium grows, and it's kind of getting over the line at this point. So stripped down version. I don't know. No, I don't know the answer to that question. You can't use that with FileMaker Server anyway. It requires the standard or the enterprise edition of Windows Server anyway. So, sorry. I know they have like a containerized version of Windows Server as well and stuff like that. I'm not touching that or using any of it because it's not officially. So it may work. I don't know. It has to have all the components in it, so you're going to need IIS and all that stuff. I think there's some reliance on the desktop features as well. Specifically, probably the PDF stuff relies on it. So I don't know how persnickety the FileMaker server installer is about actually checking those requirements or not. And so I guess you can try it and see if it breaks, but that's don't put it into production, please. So
I see nothing. So
wrapping up early on a Friday. Time for me to
not
get back
that
out
early.
my
Only
hammock
by
with
6
some
minutes.
cocktails. Get
5
a tan.
minutes. Yeah. We were threatening Margaret earlier to go out of cell range and have some wonderful drinks on the beach.
Yeah, and I said that we'd then have a Cat Friday where I just showed cat videos to everyone for the entire day. Desktop. Thank you very much, you both. This has been fantastic. Much appreciated as always. Yeah, everyone's saying great presentation. So that's
Hey, we couldn't do it without our audience. So thank you everybody who came today.
Yes. Everyone have a good weekend, and I'm gonna roll the music. Bye-bye.
maybe a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.